Today we will uncover the shocking and unknown history of how Christopher Columbus's quest for India led him to America, and the devastating consequences that followed, and the glory of discovering a new route to India, only to stumble upon an entirely unknown continent. But here's the shocking part. Columbus didn't just discover America, he unleashed a chain of events that would forever alter the course of history. What did he and his crew really find when they landed on those distant shores? Why did they call the native people Indians? And what did these indigenous civilizations think of these strange, pale-skinned visitors? More importantly, what horrors did the native populations face in the wake of Columbus's arrival? And what secrets did they carry about their own ancient, advanced societies? This is not just a story of exploration, it's a tale of clash, survival, and the untold mysteries of a world that existed long before Columbus ever set foot on his ship. It was August 3rd, 1492, when Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer funded by the Spanish monarchy, set sail from Palos de la Frontera with 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Niña. His mission was clear: to find a westward sea route to Asia, specifically to India, which was renowned for its wealth of spices, silks, and gold. The idea was revolutionary at the time. Most Europeans believed the world was flat, and sailing too far west meant risking a plunge into an endless abyss. But Columbus, armed with maps and calculations that suggested the earth was round, was convinced he could reach Asia by crossing the Atlantic. What he didn't know was that an entire continent, and civilizations far older and more complex than anyone in Europe could imagine, lay in his path. After weeks at sea, with supplies running low and his crew on the brink of mutiny, Columbus finally spotted land on October 12, 1492. He believed he had reached the East Indies, a group of islands near India. When he stepped ashore on an island in the Bahamas, he was greeted by the Taino people, the indigenous inhabitants of the region. To Columbus, these people were Indians, a name that stuck despite the glaring geographical error. The Taino were friendly and welcoming, offering gifts of gold, parrots, and other treasures. Columbus, blinded by his desire for wealth and glory, saw them as potential subjects to convert to Christianity and laborers to exploit. But what he didn't realize was that the Taino and the other native peoples he would encounter were part of a vast and intricate network of civilizations that had thrived in the Americas for thousands of years. The native peoples of the Americas were not the savages that Columbus and his men described in their journals. They were part of advanced societies with rich cultures, complex political systems, and deep spiritual beliefs. The Taino, for example, lived in well-organized villages, practiced agriculture, and had a sophisticated understanding of astronomy. They were skilled artisans, creating intricate pottery, carvings, and jewelry. But Columbus and his crew were not interested in understanding these people, they were interested in exploiting them. Within days of landing, Columbus took several Taino prisoners, hoping they would lead him to gold. This marked the beginning of a brutal era of colonization that would decimate native populations and erase entire cultures. As Columbus continued his explorations, he encountered other indigenous groups, including the Arawak and the Carib. Each group had its own unique traditions, languages, and ways of life. But Columbus's arrival spelled disaster for all of them. The Europeans brought with them diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which the native populations had no immunity. These diseases spread like wildfire, wiping out entire communities. It's estimated that within a few decades of Columbus's arrival, up to 90% of the native population in some areas had died from disease, violence, and the harsh conditions of forced labor. But the horrors didn't stop there. Columbus and his men were relentless in their pursuit of wealth. They enslaved native people, forcing them to work in gold mines and on plantations. Those who resisted were brutally punished. Some were killed, while others had their hands cut off as a warning to others. The Taino, once a thriving people, were nearly driven to extinction. By the mid-16th century, their population had plummeted from an estimated 250,000 to just a few thousand. The same fate befell other indigenous groups as European colonization spread across the Americas. Yet, amidst the devastation, there were moments of resistance and resilience. Native leaders like Hatue, a Taino cacique, chief, fought back against the Spanish invaders. Hatue organized a rebellion, rallying his people to resist the Europeans. Though he was eventually captured and executed, his bravery inspired others to continue the fight. Similarly, the Carib people, known for their fierce warrior culture, put up a strong resistance against European colonization. But despite their courage, the native peoples were ultimately no match for the superior weapons and tactics of the Europeans. What Columbus and his men discovered in the Americas was far more than they had bargained for. They found a land rich in resources, from gold and silver to fertile soil and abundant wildlife. But they also encountered civilizations that challenged their understanding of the world. The Aztec Empire in Mexico, the Inca Empire in South America, and the Mississippian culture in North America were all thriving societies with impressive achievements in architecture, agriculture, and science. The Aztecs, for example, built towering pyramids and had a complex calendar system, while the Inca constructed vast road networks and terraced farms in the Andes Mountains. These civilizations were not primitive. They were advanced in ways that rivaled, and in some cases surpassed, the achievements of Europe. But the Europeans were not interested in learning from these cultures. They saw them as obstacles to be conquered and resources to be exploited. The Spanish conquistadors, following in Columbus's footsteps, launched brutal campaigns to subjugate the native peoples. Hernán Cortés, for example, led the conquest of the Aztec Empire, while Francisco Pizarro conquered the Inca Empire. These conquests were marked by violence, betrayal, and the destruction of entire cities. The Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, once a magnificent city built on a lake, was reduced to rubble. The Inca city of Cusco, with its stunning stone architecture, was looted and repurposed by the Spanish. The legacy of Columbus's voyage is a complicated one. On one hand, it marked the beginning of a new era of global exploration and exchange, often referred to as the Columbian Exchange. This period saw the transfer of plants, animals, and ideas between the Old World and the New World. Crops like maize, potatoes, and tomatoes were introduced to Europe, while horses, cattle, and wheat were brought to the Americas. This exchange transformed diets, economies, and cultures on both sides of the Atlantic, but on the other hand, it also led to the exploitation, enslavement, and near annihilation of the native peoples of the Americas. The story of Columbus and the native peoples he encountered is not just a historical event. It's a cautionary tale about the consequences of greed, ignorance, and the clash of cultures. It's a reminder that history is often written by the victors and that the voices of the oppressed are too often silenced. But it's also a story of resilience and survival. Despite centuries of colonization, the descendants of the native peoples of the Americas continue to preserve their cultures, languages, and traditions. They are a testament to the strength and endurance of the human spirit. So what really happened when Columbus set sail in 1492? He didn't find India, but he did find a world that was far more complex and mysterious than he could have imagined. He encountered people who had built civilizations that rivaled those of Europe, and he set in motion a series of events that would change the course of history. But the story doesn't end with Columbus. It continues with the native peoples who survived, resisted, and persevered in the face of unimaginable challenges. This is the untold history of Columbus's voyage, a story of discovery, destruction, and the enduring legacy of the first Americans. And it's a story that we're still uncovering today, as archaeologists, historians, and indigenous communities work together to piece together the past and honor the voices of those who came before us. This is Beyond Time TV, where history is more than just dates and names. It's a journey into the unknown, a quest for truth, and a celebration of the human spirit. Join us as we explore the shocking and unknown history of Christopher Columbus, the native peoples of the Americas, and the world they shared. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our latest explorations into the mysteries of the past. The story is far from over. Let's uncover it together